On November 19, 1863, in the middle of the American Civil War, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln stood at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, to dedicate a new military cemetery on the war's bloodiest battlefield. Just 4 months earlier, the three-day Battle of Gettysburg left more than 45,000 men killed, wounded, captured, or missing. The hard-fought Union victory was a turning point that ended Confederate General Robert E. Lee's last invasion of the North. Into that grief and exhaustion, Lincoln brought an oration of only 272 words. It took him just 2 minutes to deliver what has since been hailed as one of the greatest speeches in history. But why was the speech so short? And what made it so great? The cemetery at Gettysburg exists today because Pennsylvania's governor, Andrew Curtin, asked attorney David Wills to care for the Gettysburg dead. Wills bought 17 acres of pasture land and invited famous orator Edward Everett to give the main dedicatory speech. Lincoln's role? Almost an afterthought. Wills asked him, just 2 weeks before the ceremony, for a few appropriate remarks. Everett talked for 2 hours. Lincoln then spoke for about 2 minutes, defining in those brief moments what the war was really about. Lincoln began with the now famous line, 77 years ago, and then reached back to a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He told his audience that the war was a test as to whether any nation founded on those principles could last. He insisted that those gathered that day for the ceremony could not truly dedicate, nor consecrate, nor hallow the ground where they stood, because the soldiers who fought there had already done so, giving the last full measure of devotion. Lincoln predicted, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here." He was right about only one of those two things. As he correctly believed, the Battle of Gettysburg has long been remembered as a defining moment in American history. Today, in fact, the battlefield is visited by 1 million people each year. But he was wrong about the perceived unimportance of what he said there that day. For those words have become some of the most poignant in American history, inscribed on the walls of the Lincoln Memorial and recited in classrooms across the country. In fact, as a 6th grader at Cook Elementary in Syracuse, Utah, a 12-year-old Mr. Lewis was required to memorize it, something he did not enjoy much at the time, but definitely appreciates now. The Gettysburg Address was even performed by country music legend Johnny Cash on his 1972 album, America, a 200-year salute to story and song. The famous orator, Edward Everett, who spoke for those 2 hours before Lincoln, recognized immediately the power of the president's words. He wrote a letter to Lincoln the following day, stating, "I should be glad if I could flatter myself that I came as near to the central idea of the occasion in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes." Only one photo of Lincoln at Gettysburg that day has been found. It wasn't until 1952 that Lincoln was identified in the photo, when a small section was enlarged. There's a myth out there that Lincoln quickly penned the address on the train to Gettysburg. In reality, he carefully prepared multiple handwritten copies, his steady script revealing a firm writing surface, not a bumpy rail car. Reception at the time was mixed, divided along party lines. But over time, Lincoln's short speech came to embody a new birth of freedom, framing the Civil War as a struggle not only to save the Union, but to advance liberty and equality, so that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1703, a French political prisoner known as the Man in the Iron Mask dies in the Bastille. In 1794, the Jay Treaty, which helps avoid a war between the US and Britain, is signed. In 1969, 29-year-old Brazilian soccer star Pelé scores his 1,000th professional goal. In 1985, in Geneva, Switzerland, Reagan and Gorbachev hold their first summit meeting. In 1990, pop duo Milli Vanilli is stripped of a Grammy for not actually singing on their album. In 2007, Amazon begins selling the Kindle, which plays a key role in popularizing e-readers. In 2021, Cleveland's baseball team becomes the Guardians, a name inspired by famous statues. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. Who was the highest-ranking and highest-profile Nazi tried at Nuremberg after World War II? Joseph Goebbels, Karl Dönitz, Hermann Goering, or Alfred Jodl? Liked learning about the Gettysburg Address? Then you'll love this one about Lincoln's role in the creation of Thanksgiving. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.